Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and hello everyone. This session is about National Curriculum 2006, and in this particular session we are going to discuss the structure and elements of the National Curriculum. Being a teacher educator, I have seen teachers very much confused about the National Curriculum. Usually they think as if the textbooks they are teaching, that is the curriculum, or the syllabus they are following in the schools, that's the curriculum. So I thought that why not a session about the national curriculum where the structure and elements of national curriculum be discussed, so it will help the teachers to understand the curriculum in the real sense, though they may have background information about the curriculum, that how it is developed. They may have read or studied it in the B.Ed and M.Ed courses, but in real sense, there are very few teachers who are familiar with the National Curriculum 2006. So in this particular session, different aspects of the National Curriculum, especially the structure and the elements will be discussed. Objectives of this session are just two: to make understand that what is National Curriculum 2006 and its key components. You might have heard about the levels, the SLOS, or student learning outcomes, the benchmarks, the standards and competencies, or the key learning areas. So in this particular session, the focus will be on these components or elements of National Curriculum. Also, we will discuss the linkages between a curriculum and the textbook, that what's the link between a textbook and a curriculum, how are they interrelated. So those who are thinking that the textbook is a curriculum, hopefully this session will help them to understand the relationship between these two. Usually when we talk about the levels, this laws, benchmark, standards and competencies, they may have different meanings and different perspectives, but in this particular session, we will discuss them in perspective or from the aspect of the National Curriculum 2006, that what's levels over there, what are the SLOs, what are the benchmarks, and what is standard, and what is the competencies. So these things will be discussed. If we look at the National Curriculum 2006, in all the curriculums, by all the curriculums is mean that whether we study physics curriculum, chemistry curriculum, biology, English, or mathematics curriculum, over there you will find this structure. There are levels, then the key learning areas, the SLOs, the benchmarks, and the standards. In all the curriculums, there are different developmental levels, the key learning areas. They have been given different names in different curriculums, will be discussed later on. The student learning outcomes, it's also very much important to understand the SLOs. We will discuss that also. And the benchmarks are the targets set at different developmental levels, and the standards. So all these things will be discussed in this session. But let me say once again that these five are the key components or elements of all the curriculums: levels, key learning areas, SLOs, benchmarks, and standards. In all the curriculums, you will find these words or these terminologies. Now let's start with the levels. In the National Curriculum 2006, the grades have been further divided into different levels. As all of you know, elementary and secondary education start from grade 1 and ends at grade 12. Grade 1 and 2 are called level 1. Level 2 is from grade 3 to 5. Level 3 is from 6 to 8. Level 4 is from 9 to 10. Level 5 is from 11 to 12. So there are 5 developmental levels. If you find it a bit difficult to remember, just remember that at grade 2 level, usually there is the assessment. At grade 5 level, there is assessment. Grade 8 level, there is assessment. Grade 10 level, grade 10, over there you can see the matriculate or the metric is another level, and the first year, second year are called intermediate. That's the final level. So all the curriculums have been divided into 5 developmental levels, and over there you will see the benchmarks, though the benchmark will be discussed a bit later. But at this stage, let me tell you that these are the developmental levels of the National Curriculum 2006. Now, as far key learning areas are concerned, in every curriculum, you will see that the subject has been divided into different learning areas. If I ask you about English, you may answer that reading, writing, listening, speaking, etc. So these are the key areas or different areas. Similarly, if I ask you about mathematics, you may say that the algebra, geometry, etc. Now, for these key learning areas, in different curriculums, different words have been used. For example, in English, the key learning areas are called competencies. In mathematics, physics, chemistry, they are called standards. And the bio, the word theme has been used. And in the general science, you can see that the word strand has been used. So it shouldn't be confused that usually we use the competencies for all the subjects. No, it's not like that. Only the word competency should be used for the key learning areas in English, and for mathematics and other subjects they are the strand, etc. Now it also tells us something, that though the structure of all the curriculum is the same, but the terminologies may vary from curriculum to curriculum. And now look at this English subject curriculum. Over there, 5 key learning areas have been identified. Okay, let me tell you one thing more, that when we think about the English, we may say reading, writing, listening, and speaking. These are the key learning areas. But when we will talk about the key learning areas in English curriculum, then there are 5. Reading and thinking skill, it's 1 competency. Writing skill, oral communication, formal and lexical, and it covers the grammar and the vocabulary, and the appropriate ethical and social development, where social norms, greeting, courtesy, etc. These things are discussed. The competency in English shouldn't be taken for or thought as if it's the skill or the ability of a person to do something. No, it is just the key learning area defined in the English curriculum, and they are just 5. Later on, the SLOs will be developed. You will see in the upcoming slides that some SLOs will be developed on the reading and thinking skills, some on the writing, some oral communication, formal and lexical, appropriate ethical and social development. But remember that the main key learning areas in English are just 5. If we look at the mathematics, as explained a bit earlier, that the word standard is used for the key learning areas. Let me remind you, in the English, key learning areas are called competencies. In the mathematics, they are called standards. They are 5 in number. Number of operations: standard 1, standard 2 algebra, standard 3 measurement and geometry, standard 4 information handling, and standard 5 reasoning and logical thinking. So these are the 5 different key learning areas of mathematics. And similarly, as discussed earlier, that reading and thinking, lexical aspect, and writing, etc., against them, SLOs are developed. Similarly, for the mathematics subject, SLOs are developed against these 5 different areas or different key learning areas. But the common name for all these areas will be standard, not the competencies, as was in the English curriculum. So it shouldn't be taken for that. It has a different structure as far the terminology used over there is concerned. Let me tell you one thing about the standards, that in the English curriculum, we think standard to be the achievement level of the students at grade 12. But in mathematics, these are the key learning areas. The biology curriculum is much more, I should say, well managed as compared to the other ones. I really like it. Now over here also you can see the different key learning areas are application of biology, biodiversity, cell biology, life processes, continuity in life, ecology, etc. Now these are the 6 different key learning areas in biology, and the best thing why I like it, in the shaded area you can see that even the number of periods assigned for these particular key learning areas are mentioned. For example, you can see in from grade 11 to 12, if you look at the top right, for study of life and biodiversity, 74 periods have been assigned for this purpose. So if you want to cover whole of that particular key learning area, you will need 74 periods in grade 1, grade 11 and grade 12. Similarly, for the cell biology, 60 periods are reserved. So it really helps the teachers to cover the assigned course in the allotted time. As far competencies are concerned, as we discussed earlier, they are listed or stated or written in the curriculum in this form. If you study the English curriculum, at the top you can see competency number 4, formal and lexical aspects of the language. Now in the table, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, so for this particular competency, then SLOs have been developed. SLOs we will discuss later on, but let me tell you one thing, that against the competency, inside that competency there may be different areas, like in the formal and lexical aspect there are nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs. In this particular page you can see that SLOs are given against this particular competency. So against the reading and writing you will see some other SLOs, reading and thinking some other SLOs, for the writing some other SLOs, for formal and lexical you can see over here, for social and ethical there will be other SLOs. Now it's about SLOs, this slide. SLOs are the student learning outcomes, and they are the concepts to be taught. Now when we teach the textbooks, over there we are not supposed to teach that content, but we are supposed to teach the concepts. Now from where come those concepts? Those concepts are in the shape of SLOs in the curriculum. Now same page as discussed earlier, from the noun, these concepts are to be covered by the teacher as far formal and lexical aspect of language competency is concerned. For instance, recognize naming words as noun, demonstrate use of some nouns from immediate and extended environment. Now if you look at this structure in the grade 3, the SLOs are not of that much difficulty level. In the grade 4 they are a bit higher in level, and at the grade 5 you can see that they are much more higher as far the understanding or difficulty level is concerned. So student learning outcomes are stated or written against every competency in all the curriculums. When if you want to understand the wording of the SLOs, remember one thing, that each SLO starts with a verb, and whatever starts with a verb usually it gives a command, and the command means that it's giving us direction. So those words which are in the beginning of every SLO, they are giving us the direction that what we are supposed to teach, what we are supposed to cover in that particular session or that particular session, or we can say that particular exercise we are going to cover. In the next page, some examples are given about the command words, from where we will understand that what is meant by the command word or command verbs. But let me tell you one thing, that unless and until you understand the direction of the given in the SLO in the shape of command verbs, you will not be able to follow the teaching practices properly, because over there you may be expected to do something and you may be doing something else. For instance, if you are directed to define noun in a particular SLO, and over there you are not defining the noun, but asking the students to use nouns in their sentences. No, the direction was to identify, and you are using over there, so you are not following the direction then. Now these are the command words which I was talking about. Write a few sentences to describe. Now in this particular SLO, we are expecting the students will write a few sentences and describe a picture, and the next one they will list some category, similar category from a given text picture, or show a series of actions in a picture. They may be just listing down the actions. Recognize function of selected question, why, what, when, how, why are these used. Now in the next one, read number. Now we are not expecting to write, but to read. In the next one, we are expecting to write, then to identify, then to count, then to arrange. So all these words which are given at the beginning of SLOs, they are called command words or command verbs, and they are giving us the direction or the guidance or the instruction what we are expected to teach and what we are expecting from the students to learn at this end of that session or that particular lesson. So you have to keep in mind the SLOs against each subject, as well as against each exercise or against each lesson. As far benchmarks are concerned, let me tell you one thing, that SLOs are at grade level. As far the targets which are set for the students at developmental level, they are called the benchmarks. In the National Curriculum 2006, you can see that benchmarks are given at different level, and against each key learning area. For example, if we talk about English, the benchmarks are given for each competency. So remember one thing, that there may be 1, 2, 3 or maybe more than those than that benchmarks against each competency. SLOs are usually too many. There may be 10, 15, 20, and benchmark may be just one sentence. For instance, a child will be able to write alphabet, then word, then sentences, then a paragraph, then an essay, and those were the SLOs. But at the end, if we just like, a child will be able to write an essay. Now essay, it codes large number of SLOs inside it, so that's the benchmark. Now for instance, if you look at the writing skills, the benchmarks are given for different levels, grade 1 to level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So write words and sentences using writing techniques. So large number of SLOs are covered over there, but this one sentence shows that it's the ultimate end or the target set for level 1. For the level 2, identify and use techniques for writing effective unified sentence, and it's a bit higher in level. So it means that at each developmental level, benchmarks are set. Let me recall or remind you once again that at grade level there are SLOs, but at developmental levels there are the benchmarks. So the targets set for a grade against each competency are called SLOs, and the targets set against each competency at different developmental levels, they are called the benchmarks. This picture shows you benchmarks in the English curriculum. Similarly, if you study the mathematics or other subjects over there also, you will find such benchmarks given. As far as standard are concerned, I have already told you that different terms are used. So if we talk in terms of English curriculum, standard will mean the level of achievement of a student against a particular competency at the attainment of 12 years of education. So for further easiness, let me tell you that at grade level there are the SLOs, at developmental levels there are the benchmarks, and at the 12 years or 12 grade completion there are the standards as far the English curriculum is concerned. If we talk about the same word in terms of mathematics curriculum, over there it may a bit vary, because over there standard has been used in term of the key learning areas or competencies. So it shouldn't be confused with the English and mathematics. In English curriculum it means something else, in the mathematics curriculum it means something else. And from here we can also see that different curriculums have different terms used for. Now it's an example of the standard, though benchmarks are given right below, but over there if you look at and focus on top of the slide, the writing skill is competency 2. The first one was I think all of you remember now, reading and thinking, and the next one was writing skills. And against this competency, standard 1 is all students will produce with developing fluency and accuracy academic, transactional and creative writing which is focused, purposeful and shows an insight into the writing process. Now it's a very high demand. At grade level there are low demands, low expectations. At the benchmark or the developmental levels, they are gradually becoming higher and higher. At the standard, it's the ultimate aim. Now it also shows that against each competency where we want our students to be at the end of leaving the school, it means 12 years, that will be called as a standard. As was there for each competency, that there were benchmarks against each competency, similarly there are standards against each competency also. Now summing up the discussion up till now, there are student competencies at the top or the key learning areas. Then there are targets set at 12 years of completion. They are called the standards. Now let me tell you once again, and when we talk in terms of English curriculum, and developmental level, there are the benchmarks, and at the grade level there are the student learning outcomes. That was going from top to bottom. It's a pyramid, and if we start from going from bottom to top, so at grade level there are the SLOS, at the developmental level there are the benchmarks, 12 years completion, the standards and the competencies. So it gives a whole picture of the national curriculum 2006, but this particular slide is more relevant to English curriculum than the mathematics or other. If you just don't consider the word standard over there, then you can see that for all the curriculum it will remain the same. Now curriculums are developed, but what's the relationship between the textbook and the curriculum then? It's a question of great importance. Usually we think that we should teach conceptually rather than the text or the content. We should teach the concepts. But what are the concepts? Concepts are the SLOs. The SLOs are the concepts. They give us the direction, and on the basis of those SLOs, textbooks are developed. So when we are going to teach a textbook, it is not to teach the content but to teach those concepts, because those concepts are providing a base for the textbooks. So a teacher need be very much familiar with the SLOs, and if he is familiar with the SLOs, then he will know the purpose of that particular lesson or the particular exercise. So while teaching, he has to focus on those learning outcomes then rather than the content then. So it's the relationship. So it's very much clear now that the textbooks are developed on the basis of national curriculum. And how it is based on the national curriculum? It's based on the SLOs or the learning outcomes. Where are learning outcomes? They are in the national curriculum then. Let's look at these two, this one slide having two different parts. The one is showing the textbook content page. Over there, sets, what is set, types of set, and in the curriculum you can see the curriculum demands that about the set there should be definition of the set, recognize notation of a set and its objects element. It means recognition of notation of a set. And if we look at the content page, students will be able to define a set, recognize set notations and elements of a set, represent sets in different forms, define different types of sets with the help of examples. So over here it's very much crystal clear now that the curriculum is reflected in the textbook, either partly or wholly. One thing I would like to add, that usually all the contents of the curriculum are not or cannot be covered in the textbooks. So some SLOs are taken from the curriculum on the basis of which the textbooks are developed, and for the remaining SLOs you have to understand the SLOs in the curriculum also. So whatever you are teaching isn't the whole curriculum, it is just part of that curriculum. Some SLOs are missing, and for those missing you have to consult the curriculum. In the Islamiyat curriculum, these are different areas about Quran Majid, Nazra, about Imaniyat, Ibadiyat, Sirat Tayyiba, Akhlaqiyat. That's the curriculum. And if you look at the content page of a textbook, so Quran Majid is there, Imraniyat wa Ibadat is there, Sirat Tayyiba is there, Akhlaq wa Adab is there. So it's a total reflection of the national curriculum on that textbook. Now it shows, it also tells you one thing. Remember that if you are running a private school, over there you have to look at whether the content of the textbooks are in alignment with the national curriculum or not. So just pick up that curriculum, look at the key learning areas, then pick up the textbook, compare it, whether contents are covered or not. If it's covered, it's okay. Then how much covered, it will tell you about the effectiveness of the material also. If it covers most of the curriculum, it means it's more useful then. Now exercise questions are also based on the SLOs. Usually if you want to assess the concepts, you have to assess them against the SLOs. It also means that whatever you have taught, you should ask those questions which are conceptual. What are the concepts? The SLOs. So always base the questions on the basis of the learning outcomes or the SLOs. They will be more conceptual then, rather than if you are asking when he gets up early, when he gets up. Now when he gets up, it's not a question at all. Now you can make it how interesting was the trip, write few sentences. Now over there you are going to assess the writing techniques of the students then. So it also tells you one thing more, a very much important one, that exercise questions should be based on SLOs. If you want to see that how much concepts are covered, then just look at the curriculum and the exercise questions, whether they are based on the SLOs or not. It will give you about the quality or standard of a textbook. Now these are some of the SLOs, and some questions are given at the end of a particular lesson. Scan the text to extract information. Now look at the question number 1, answer the following question. All these questions are based on this SLO. Write a guided paragraph. Now if you look at the following, write a paragraph of 10 sentences on the benefits. Now it's guiding. Classify adjectives. Now I can see no question on this one. Articulate, identify and use degrees of regular and irregular. No, the questions are not based on these two, but on the first two only. Now maybe there are questions coming in the next slide, and by slide I mean the next pages. You may see that there may be questions on the last two SLOs also. So these SLOs, the first two SLOs, are covered in these questions. Question number 1 about writing, answering some questions, and then asking the students to write a paragraph of 10 sentences on the benefits of archery. Okay, now the same page of the SLOs, scan the text to extract information. Now in the question, nothing about it. Write a guided paragraph. No, we cannot see any question based on this one. Classify adjectives of quality, quantity, size, shape, color, and origin. No, there is no such classification. Now articulate, identify, and use degrees of regular and irregular adjectives. And the question says, find out regular and irregular adjectives in the following. So articulate, no. Identify, yep. Find out, identify. Use, we are not using them in sentences, so a part of the SLO is covered in this question. Now for the remaining one, or for the first three SLOs, you have, if they are not available in the textbook, you have to develop questions. If they are available, just link them, make them more practice, and the students will be developed conceptually then. It also shows that a teacher need be very much used to with how to develop the items also. The question, though I have a session on that item writing. Hope this presentation will help you to understand the basic structure of National Curriculum 2006. If still there are questions in your mind, and hopefully there will be, because it's a very huge document which cannot be explained in this 30 minutes, but I try my best to cover at least different aspects or angles of the national curriculum, and hopefully this session will help you to understand at least the basics of National Curriculum 2006. Some other presentations are coming on how to develop items based on the SLOs, or the learning outcomes, how to teach conceptually. For that, you may watch my channel. Also, comment me if you have still some queries or worries in your mind. So thank you so much. Hopefully this presentation will help you to understand the National Curriculum 2006. You can contact me on my number, and also you can email me if you have any good suggestions. Thank you so much. See you then. Allah Hafiz.